Okay, we're gonna try this. So what you're looking at here is a MacBook Air sleeve. Why? Excuse me, I'm still a little bit sick. I just have a cold or something, but we're gonna try this. We're soldering on. So I bought a tablet. It's now about 2 weeks ago that I bought it. And I have to say I am super happy with it. And I'll tell you why. So this tablet is not an iPad or an Android tablet or anything like that. I've always had a big problem with these newfangled tablets. I'm a computer guy. And even on Android, you still don't really get any productivity software. And even if you get it, it's pretty shitty. So let's see what we got here. It is well, it's a Chinese thing. It's being sold as a Cube i7 Stylus. And I think we may be living in the future. This is a tablet with a keyboard dock. So this is how it sits with the keyboard dock. I'm not going to show it with the keyboard dock. This is just for completion's sake. This is the actual unit, and this is not a normal review. Like, if you came to this channel for a normal review, there are thousands of Cube i7 reviews out there already. We're gonna tear this down and look at it on the inside because that's much more interesting. The thing that makes these tablets cool, obviously it's a Windows tablet. It's a full Windows tablet, so it's not like Windows RT, which doesn't work. What sets this apart from many other tablets you can buy is two things. One, the most important thing, it's got a Core M5Y10. This processor is incredibly fast for a tablet. Like, I had a full Ivy Bridge laptop before, more expensive than this one too. It had a good processor, like a mid-range Core i3 processor, pretty fast, like it felt fast. This is faster. This is like only 2 or 3 years newer, and it's faster, and it's a tablet, and it lasts longer on the battery, and it's totally awesome. The second thing that's important is that this has a Wacom digitizer. For those of you who don't know, normal touchscreens are capacitive touchscreens, which are good at registering fingers on glass, but they're not accurate. Like, if you put your finger down and you keep it down, if you would look at the actual registered location where it thinks your finger is, you would be able to see it wiggle around a little bit. And this is just an inherent problem with capacitive touchscreens. They're inaccurate, and their absolute accuracy is also not great. So if you want to do better than this, you need to use a stylus. And actually, those resistive touchscreens that preceded capacitive and that were so shitty, they're really good. Super high accuracy, very low cost. Those were actually really good screens, and I'm kind of sad that they don't make them anymore. But there's an alternative, and it's called Wacom or Entrig. So Wacom uses this active pen. It's not supplied with the tablet, but I've had so many Wacom devices I can just grab a pen, and you can use that to accurately touch the screen. You can do drawing. It has pressure sensitivity, so it knows how hard you're pressing. So you can make, like when you're drawing, you can make thicker lines and that kind of stuff. It is super awesome. It is great for note-taking. Like, it feels much better than a capacitive stylus or anything. And it comes with a 64GB interchangeable SSD. So just to be clear here, this has miles better performance than any iPad you can buy. It even outperforms the low-end Microsoft Surface, not the Surface Pro, but the normal Surface tablets. And it's half the price. So what does this mean for... Oh, wait. I have another hand. what does this mean for actual performance? What can you do with this? I edited and rendered 2 of the videos on my channel on this machine. How cool is that? You can edit video on a tablet, like on a tablet that lasts 6 hours on the battery. Okay, before I have a second heart attack, we're gonna pop this open and look inside. So this has been mentioned before. If you're watching this video just to see how to get into this machine, you want to start here, roughly here, with opening the case. The case is, it's all clips around, so kind of a bitch to get into, but with a little bit of elbow grease should work. Use a plastic spudger tool, by the way. So this is the back side, and something extremely interesting here is if you look here, I'm not sure if it shows up on the camera, but there seem to be milling marks here. This is milled. It's not milled very well. I have to say that. It's a pretty dull mill that got into here, but it's milled. That's an expensive process. I really don't know how they get to this low price. That they have to do something with subsidies or something. So putting that aside, here's the actual unit. And one thing you'll see, if you know how this should look on the inside, I mean, there are many reviews that open this. You see that this SSD is actually larger than it's supposed to be. And that's because it is actually larger. I put in a 256 gig Crucial SSD in there. Because 64 gigs is really small. So here's a more zoomed in picture. These here are screws. This is the CPU area. And one thing you have to know about this processor is pretty fast. It's a dual core Broadwell processor at 2 gigahertz, and that should tell you that it's gonna make a lot of heat. And this heat spreader situation that kind of couples into the backside, this heat spreader is definitely not enough to cool a full 2 gigahertz processor. So what they're doing here, this processor has some sensing circuitry inside that just downclocks it as it gets hotter, so as to keep the temperature of the backside cool to the touch. And one thing that's really cool about this processor is that Intel kind of lets you decide what is too hot. So it has this absolute maximum junction temperature, which is like 95 degrees or something. And it has this setting called the skin temperature, and it tries to keep the skin temperature at a certain level. And like a very conservative level is 40 degrees C, so that's just slightly over body temperature. It's generally considered a little bit uncomfortable. 60 degrees C is another setting that other manufacturers use. Obviously, higher temperatures means that the processor can go faster for longer, but also that your battery drains faster. So most manufacturers that use this particular processor, they lock out this setting. And what's cool about this Chinese tablet is that this skin temperature setting is available in the BIOS. So you can tell it, I don't care if the laptop or if the tablet gets really hot, I just want it at maximum performance. And then you get a really fast processor for a tablet. We're completely inside, and here is the motherload. Oh, they use this kind of very fragile thermal interface pad. I'm going to replace this with just paste, because that has better performance. But obviously, again, if you're watching this to get a sense for how to get into this machine and how to modify it, don't do what I'm doing. So one of the cool things about these system on chips is that they have the processor, and then I'm not 100% sure. Oh, I think actually this is the processor part. Kind of recognize that from the promo pictures. And like the chipset, quote unquote chipset, is on package, so it's on this substrate. It's not the same die. As far as I understand, in the next generation, this is all integrated as well, so it will allow for even smaller package sizes. Something else we immediately see in this picture, as far as a big thing goes, is the RAM chips. So there are two 2GB SK Hynix RAM chips on here. Non-upgradable, well, I guess you can upgrade it. I bet you can resolder higher capacity ones. I know these go up to 8GB per package. Alright, let's really zoom in now. As far as chips go, if you see a chip with the ITE brand on it and it's in a PC-like computer, this is almost certainly the low-speed I/O or Super I/O chip. So these are chips that do voltage monitoring, fan control, in some cases, like obviously there's no fan in this machine, that kind of stuff. And they have this bus called the low pin count LPC bus that goes over to the CPU. Another dead giveaway usually is Parade chips. So this is a Parade P58201A, I think. So what Parade does is they make low voltage repeaters and level translators and that kind of stuff. So this is actually a PS8201A. This is an HDMI level shifter. So the HDMI port is under here, so it's kind of obvious, has something to do with HDMI. Parade also makes the PI series components, and those are PCI Express level shifters usually. Going over to here, another really obvious one, Realtek, little crab guy. I'm not sure what it's supposed to be actually. I think of it. ALC, that's audio logic codec. So this has something to do with the audio. Obviously, here's the audio port. So one thing people often don't know is that audio on motherboards is sent digitally in what's called a PCM format over a bus that's very similar to an SPI bus. So that means your audio, it almost never runs off of PCI Express. So often if you have like a separate sound card that you stick into a PCI Express port, it has to have a second chip. Now I know that Realtek also makes direct PCI Express interfacing things, but those do not work well with UEFI, for instance. So kind of interesting to know that there's this LPC bus and a PCM bus going all over the place. So then we come here. Oh, wrong end of the stick. This chip here, I'm not quite sure. I cannot find any data on it. It looks for all the world like maybe LCD bias or something. It's close to, this is the connector to the on, off, and volume key. So maybe it has something to do with that. I'm not quite sure. Now here's something interesting. These chips, if you see a big SO8 package, it's almost certainly flash. But this, I mean, we already saw the WinBond flash, so what other flash do we need? But possibly this chip gives some more insight into this. This is a Realtek RTS 5830. I can't find a proper data sheet for it outright, but I do know that it's the 5800 series is a camera driver. So this is mighty interesting. It's obviously coupled to these two flash chips. and going over this almost certainly standardized connector. And actually this is also a camera chip, so almost definitely one is for the lower resolution front facing camera, one is for the other camera. Very interesting. I was under the impression that they would just use USB cameras fully integrated because that's usually cheaper. So going on, here is where the battery comes in. Very many leads here. Obviously, I think they're just having 3 positive, 3 negative. It's a 7.4 volts battery, so that means they need to have 1 tap for the middle voltage to do balancing or maybe just monitoring. And these other 3 leads, most likely they will need some kind of temperature sensing. So 2 of the leads are going to do temperature sensing. And the other lead, possibly a battery fault indicator, or otherwise a voltage tap for measuring the battery voltage and their load. So I'm very much guessing that these 2 inductors, which are obviously closely coupled to these switching regulator ICs, this is going to have something to do with charging. So this here is interesting. This is a TI TPS 51622 2-phase V-core power regulator for Intel CPUs. I'm amazed that they use this actually. This is pretty expensive, like this whole arrangement with multiple phases. So let's see. Yeah, pretty sure that this and this are the 2 phases for the CPU power supply. And this is just like an input anti-ringing LC filter that they made. 2 phases for only a 15 watt maximum draw CPU. That's, I guess that's okay. I would just do it with 1 phase. Like 15 watts is nothing, even though it's like 0.7 volts or something that runs on. That's only 10 15 amps. You can do that in one of these tiny inductors. They're only 1 microhenry. So now we come here. This is the Wi-Fi chip. It's some kind of Realtek chip. This is probably the only real downside of this old tablet. It's very cheap, very shitty. 2.4 gigahertz, single antenna. It's got 2 antenna connections here. I'm kind of thinking of putting in a second antenna and seeing if it gets better. But the reception is mediocre and the speed is very low. So something that probably was obvious from the overview shots is that there's a really big package that's unpopulated here. I'm not 100% sure what's supposed to be here. Maybe if you know if there's options. Like, I would expect this, because it's so close to the Wi-Fi, that this may be an alternative Wi-Fi/3G chip or something. And no surprises here, a Paratech PS8625 DisplayPort to LVDS converter. Obviously this, the Intel CPU outputs DisplayPort, and it needs converters to go to other formats. One area that I actually forgot to mention earlier is this little chip here, Realtek RTS 5170, which is an SD card reader for the micro SD slot. So there you go, that's the motherboard overview. Some other things, obviously here's the camera. The cameras are both back-to-back. There's the Wi-Fi antenna here, which is kind of bodily soldered here. You can see the 2 wires, like the core and the installation wire going over here. I guess it's okay. In general though, I have to say, build quality is really good, solder quality is excellent. This is a very well put together machine. I have no hesitation recommending this, even though, I mean, the last video I put out is some crappy Chinese quote-unquote power supply. Not everything from China is crappy. And this is obviously a good example of something made in China. It's made very well. Oh, and another thing to mention is that here on the bottom side, obviously it's flipped over. This here is like a pogo pin USB connector. Not a standard USB connector, but they did a thing with pogo pins to connect to the keyboard dock. So the keyboard dock is just a USB device. And they have these little pieces of ferrous material. I think it's just pot iron to connect to magnets, or maybe I guess they're magnets. This really looks like magnets. So on the tablet itself, there are magnets, and then there's either counterpolar magnets or just iron in the keyboard dock. Yep, everything still works. Time to edit this video.